6:30. Reminder to everyone here, the meeting is being digitally recorded, so as always, please be respectful of each other, both speaking as well as when you're listening. First thing, is anyone here for open session? Kathy, if you'd like to come up and join us, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Hansgate, Chairman of the Board of Health, and I just wanted to take a couple minutes to speak on behalf of the recycling seminar that was last week. And I wanted to thank Nathan for his efforts in looking into this. It's not something that the Board of Health has time for, even though recycling technically comes under our umbrella. I wanted to just say that the Board of Health does not have plans to reopen the recycling center once a month as it had been prior to COVID. The upgrades to collecting things even like motor oil would require complete change of how it's currently set up, because we were kind of grandfathered in on how it was.
That would be expensive, right?
It's an expense that I'm not sure how valuable it is. You know, there are other recycling locations for electronics in Gardner. You can go online. We try to have as much as possible on the website as a link to places to do this sort of thing. It's not always there. It seems like one time it's there and then a year, you know, months and months later it kind of disappears. I'm not sure why, but anyhow, we'll make sure that that's as available. In regards to trash haulers, the Board of Health will permit anyone that gives us all the appropriate fees and the appropriate licensing and so on to operate in this town. We are starting, we have been requesting quarterly or monthly reports depending on how the trash haulers want to do it, whatever works for them, so that we can get the actual tonnage of trash and recycling that they're picking up in our town. We have been getting it already from E.L. Harvey for this year. On the flip side of not saying we're gonna reopen the recycling center, we will be doing metal recycling twice a year. Once in May and once in October sometime. Now, at this minute, the metal recycling Saturday from 10 to 1 is set for May 4th. And look for information on that.
Where would that be
It's right down
located?
down at the DPW at the old recycling center. The sign, you know, you would come in the sign where the sign says recycling center.
That's only 2 weeks after the Boy Scout one. So
Right.
Just so you know. Okay, because that's very
Yeah,
close.
but we take bigger things, I think.
Oh no, the Boy Scouts are getting the same dumpster dropped off from the Templeton. So
Okay.
it's all gonna be
That's fine.
whatever you got. Well, not whatever you got, but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
the same stuff. It's the same people.
Well,
But you filled it up like 3 times last time, so that's why I'm saying I don't know. It might be
Yeah.
you might be able to turn around and fill it again
right.
real quick. So
And I just think we're backlogged in town
probably.
because of metal recycling just started up again last fall. And so I don't think it's really detrimental to have it, 2 of them back to back almost. The other opportunity is to wait a little bit longer and do it May 18th. Maybe that's something I'll talk over and we should maybe postpone it just a little bit longer. I don't know. But I think
On
there's
Star Wars Day.
May 18th is Star Wars?
No, May the 4th. May the
Oh.
4th be with you.
Oh, gotcha.
Star Wars
I
Day.
should
Yeah,
watch
don't-
that stuff,
don't
but I
ask.
don't. But anyhow, I think that we're still playing catch up, and yes, the dumpster got filled multiple times last fall.
Yep.
It just being open 10 to 1, which parked a lot of stuff, came back, it was taken away, emptied, and brought back and filled it again and stuff. So, we will do metal recycling twice a year, because it does bring in income. a small amount of income. It is the only recycling right now that's profitable. And again, we are using Templeton Salvage. The town does own, our own metal salvage dumpsters, so. It's not an expense to run it. We all volunteer to do it. And, I don't know if anybody has any other questions. I didn't wanna,
Anyone have any questions? Chris, you have anything to?
I do, once we go through the board.
I do not.
Okay, all right, Peter?
So,
Negative.
No, we're fine, Kathy.
okay, I just
Madam
wanted,
Chair.
yes.
how did, and you and Jeff can figure this out, or you and I can figure this out, how did we want to go about opinion setting, is what I'm gonna call it, for what we talked about on Thursday evening? Do you wanna go to your board and we'll put it here on the next select board meeting, and then we'll
To combine with the other townships?
to,
Is that what
I
you're
guess,
implying?
See what we wanna do,
the,
essentially, right?
the vote right now would be, do we move forward with the RFP?
Right.
In my opinion, it wouldn't hurt anybody, cause we could back out at quite literally any time up until the document is signed at the very, very end, which would likely be a couple of years away.
Right.
But, so we would still need, I would still need support from the Board of Health and the Select Board ahead of moving forward and going for that RFP or applying for said grant to work with,
Right.
Irene.
Yes, I think that should be discussed at a board meeting before we do anything.
Okay,
Oh,
I have
absolutely.
my own opinion, but I don't wanna speak on behalf of everybody else. And then, yes, so we do need to do that yet, and our next meeting is coming up next week.
Alright.
And
your next meeting,
the second and fourth.
so you could get the feeling of your people.
Right.
So that could we have it for our next meeting?
Okay,
Would that be time enough?
sure, that sounds fair.
Why don't we try to do that?
I'll
Okay.
do my best to attend their meeting next week,
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
and then I'll put it on the meeting for the 16th, which is filling up already.
Oh, okay, well, then let me know.
real quickly, I understand Princeton's position, but I didn't grasp from that meeting last week Rutland's position per se. So if you can fill me in on that later, that's fine.
Yeah, and there was, I don't believe anyone from Rutland was at the meeting.
Right,
The Rutland TA told me his Board of Health chair was there. If he was, he didn't speak up.
right,
So I
So,
know
yeah.
they've,
Princeton guy spoke up, right?
Yeah. because they're kind of in the same boat as I was. I can't say we quite yet, where,
mhm,
oh, I'll listen, and if it's worthwhile, we can talk about it further, and
right,
I'll bring it to the boards, but at the end of the day,
We're
they're
not
gonna
sure yet.
decide what's
Mhm.
best for the people. If we can save money, it's likely we're interested, but you still never know for a variety of reasons.
oh
So,
yeah, definitely. So I just wanted to summarize that without dragging that tonight, instead of dragging that meeting out last week.
The state and the organization that Irene works for are hesitant to work with Hubbardston because of nothing that has to do with any of you. But I guess in 2007, they went all the way from this point to like the very, very end where it was about to be implemented, and Hubbardston voted it down. So,
Oh,
The town people voted it down?
either the Board of Health or the Select Board, somebody, so.
No, it was a
Somebody-
different crew back
Oh, it
then.
was a different
and that's a long
time,
time
that
ago
was,
too, yeah,
by the time we're going to be talking about this, that will be almost 20 years ago.
yeah.
There's some good old people around back then.
Yeah.
Not necessarily old,
Yeah,
but
they
good old
just,
boys.
they just had let it go really far to then,
And
to then
yank
pull
the
back.
rug out, yeah.
That's just a,
That doesn't make sense to me.
it doesn't go well with other folks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to kind
Yeah.
of put that out there. Thanks.
So we'll see you at the next meeting. Thanks, Kathy. Anyone else here for open session? Okay, Katie, for announcements?
Yes, So this Sunday, on April 7th, from 9 to noon, there is a car wash for the Boy Scouts. It's a fundraiser. They're gonna be right out here at the senior center, so you're basically gonna drive around this building. You'll stop at the senior center side, get your car washed, and then drive around to be able to get out. It's gonna be $10 for a car wash, and again, that's this Sunday from 9 to noon. And then April 20th, we have Keep Hubbardston Beautiful from 8 to noon. The Girl Scouts will have a bottle and can drive. The Boy Scouts will have a scrap metal dumpster, $1 per item or $10 per truckload, and also have batteries, car batteries to be taken in for $10 each. There is a full list on a flyer that is on the town website and floating around on social media for different items that can go. And then also we'll have a drop off like trash that people have hopefully picked up alongside the road, so we can keep our streets nice and clean from all the people that like to throw their trash out the window. That drives me nuts. 800 nips and coffee cup containers and everything else. So, Keep Hubbardston Beautiful Day again is April 20th, 8 to noon. This is a rain or shine event at the rec field. Bottle and can, metal recycling, and to drop off the trash that you picked up at the side of the road. Kathy just informed us there's going to be another metal recycling day in case you missed the Boy Scouts one, and it's either going to be May 4th or 18th, and we'll verify with her for sure. And that will be down at the recycling center, and I'll get all the times when they finalize everything. We have 3 scholarships coming up available. We have more than that, but the 3 big ones are the Country Hen for the town website, and the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee. It has 3 $1,000 ones, and the Lions have one as well. So the first date coming up for deadline is the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee on April 15th. And then the second date for a deadline is the Country Hen Scholarship for April 22nd. And then the last deadline date is the Lions for May 5th. Usually the Hubbardston Library has one as well. I haven't seen theirs posted yet, but theirs is usually a little bit later. And there's probably a few others floating around, but those are the 3 big ones, main ones that are usually about $1,000. The Hubbardston Scholarship is 3 $1,000 ones. But yeah, definitely fill those out if you're a high school graduate. The Hubbardston Scholarship Committee also, you don't have to be a senior graduating, you could be going back, or it could be your second year of college or whatever, you can apply. The Hubbardston Fair is coming up in June 8th from 9 to 2 at the rec field with a rain date of the 9th. So, and that's as far as we're gonna go for right now.
Okay, for the Country Hen Scholarship, where would they get the forms?
They get the forms for the Country Hen Scholarship, you go to the town website. For the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee, you go to the Hubbardston Scholarship Committee Facebook page, and the Lions, you go to their Facebook page as well. And I do believe, for if you're a high school graduating senior, the Guidance Council has all of those up in their offices. I know they have, the Country Hen Hubbardston Scholarship, and I believe they have the Lions as well. Yes.
They point to that on there.
Yes.
Is there a fee for the town metal dumpster?
The town one, no, it's usually a free drop-off.
Okay.
The Boy Scout one, it's a fundraiser, so.
Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Are there any other reports to be given? Doesn't appear to be. Okay, we'll move then to item 4, Structural Deficit Working Group update, and Francois and Tim will invite you to come up.
Thank you.
And if you could, Francois, could you try to limit this to around approximately 20 minutes or something?
He went for you.
It's a cutoff, dead hard cutoff.
I really have very little to say. I think we're gonna be dependent very much on the report that you provide, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, okay? Thank you.
Thank you
Come
for-
join us if you.
Excuse me, 774 number, are you Heather? I guess not. She said she may call in from the car.
Hello. No, I'm not Heather. I am doing the communications merit badge for Boy Scouts, and I am supposed to attend a public meeting, so I can't attend in person right now, so I'm just calling in.
Fine, thank you very much.
What is your name?
Joseph.
Joseph, do you have any communications questions for us while we're talking to you, Joseph?
Not really.
All right, feel free to reach out if you watch and you have any questions afterwards. We are willing to work with anybody that's looking to learn about municipal government and that kind of stuff.
Don't be bashful. Feel
Okay,
free,
thank you.
feel free to ask any questions.
All right, back to the structural deficit working
The floor
group.
is yours, Francois. Go
I
ahead.
would like to thank Francois and Tim and Brett Duncan and Mary and Kelly from our finance office for working together and with me for, let's say, the last 6 to 8 months. We were working together to dive into some of the issues that are, I'm going to use the word plaguing the town and many other towns like Hubbardston. So we dug into pilot funding and revenue for the towns and revenue opportunities and education, and took a variety of what I'm going to call side quests throughout this endeavor. But all in all, we came here, we finished up most of the research and came here this evening to have a open discussion about it. I figured it would be better for everyone to have an open discussion because the three of you and the other select board members and most people watching are the choir on this type of issue, and a lot of it is stuff you've heard before. And so I didn't want to, as much as I love presenting the obvious, I did not want to make a presentation and thought there was more value in an open discussion after we've kind of opened up the books and go from there. Francois or Tim, did you want to?
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'll start and Tim, you can chime in or take over. So first of all, it was a tremendously good opportunity for individuals who are part of this town to participate in this year, and I really cherish the fact that we had different perspectives from different individuals. We had a teacher, we had Tim with his background, myself with some interests that I have in this here. And I want to say that when we looked at the situation, the problem, it really came to us by, I do have a copy of this here, thank you. It came to us as, how do we prepare for what appears to be a wall that we're going to be potentially hitting sooner than later? And we've been warned about this here for many years, that we're going to be, I think like Ryan used to say, we're going over into a financial cliff. The question is how far are you from this cliff, and what can you do potentially to prevent this? I think we took as a committee various different perspectives, and one of the things I feel very good about is that we really explored and looked at a lot of different aspects of this here. What I mean by this here is opportunities where potentially you can look at revenue, additional revenue to increase the revenue base that the town has, where the expenditures currently are, and if there is anything that could potentially be cut. I mean, people always say, well, there's fat in here, can we remove this here, can we remove the other thing? And then I think the more obvious thing is to take a look at it. Where are the true pressure points that are hitting our town? And our town's budget, and I'm just looking at the revenues, for example, that the Department of Revenue puts out on their website. Back in 2015, the total revenues for the town were 8.2 million, and in 2023, they're 10.2 million, just to give you some data points. Our expenditures actually in 2015 were 7.88 million, and they've gone all the way up to 10.4 million in 2023. One of the interesting components about this here is that one of the things we're seeing here is that the difference between expenditures and revenues are meeting. And so whereas before we had a bit more of a buffer, we could put some of that money away, say for example, for capital improvement and so forth, that's no longer happening.
Right.
And when we started looking at alternative sources of revenue for our town, like fees or other things that potentially, they're drops in the bucket, quite frankly. What is very obvious from all of the things that we're looking is that major contributors towards the town revenue are still the sales tax, not the sales tax, the real estate tax. And even though those are increasing and our tax rate has decreased, but the assessments have also increased. And so, yes, you can look at the fact that our tax rate has gone down over the last several years. People will also say that the assessments have gone up considerably just to make sure that we're keeping up the balance between the two, because we cannot really go over the 2.5% on a yearly basis. The second page, and I think everybody has copies of this here, right? The second page that you have here, I want you to keep that on the side for a second, but what I really wanted to go here is that for lack of better words, is that the elephant in the room is from a revenue perspective, the biggest expenditure is education.
Yep.
And I think we all agree education is extremely important for us. I mean, my wife was a teacher. I've had children who went to public schools. I'm a great proponent of public school education. But the reality is that we're seeing that the percentage of expenditure that the education component is taking from our overall revenue is increasing year by year by year. And you'd expect that to happen, except that our revenues are just not increasing at the same rate, which is really what the second page right here is. There are some supplementary pieces of information that I think are important for you to look at. The fiscal year assessment for students, they have obviously gone up. We also see that in this past year, we as a town are the only positive contributor from a population perspective. I think it's what is net 25 plus?
Yeah, about 20.
And you'd expect that obviously to have therefore an increased contribution towards the educational component, and that's across the board. That's obviously Central School, that's QRSD, and that is obviously also the Mount Wachusett, not Mount Wachusett, but the
Administration.
sorry?
Administration?
No,
Monty Tech.
are the schools.
Oh, Monty.
The Monty Tech, thank you. So as a result of that, we need to look at that as something that is maybe also positive from a town perspective, maybe temporary, maybe long-term. We don't know if this is going to continue increasing like this here from year to year. It depends obviously on how young a population we have and who's actually moving in and out. There's also an interesting contrast here of the per pupil expenditures between Quabbin, Tantascwa, Quabog, Gardner, Narragansett, Wachusett, and clearly it does show that the per pupil expenditure is one of the highest. One is Quabbin. And so as we're looking at all of these items, we're seeing definitely a trend that this is increasing. So I want you to kind of look at the second page here. This is something that we put together briefly today, where we're looking from 2015 to 2024, the revenue that the town has. And again, has increased from 8.2 million to 10.4 million this year. This last year's revenue growth is actually 1.69%. The educational expense that is going to be that goes against this revenue as a percentage of revenue, and we're not taking and looking at QRSD or Monty Tech or anything, but just in general, has risen from 55%, 55.3% I should say, in 2015, to 60.2%. So from a percentage perspective, it's eating more and more into the percentage of the revenue. The last column, I think, is the most important one for you to realize here. Everything is okay as long as our revenue increases dramatically too, but it has not. And as a matter of fact, if we take 2023 to 2024, the non-educational expenses that we may have as a result of what is left over after we've paid for the educational expenses
Gone down.
actually is going down. And what does that mean? It means that our town administrator, the select board, everybody else here has to tighten your budget. And there's less money therefore to go around for capital expenditure, for other projects that we would like to potentially spend that are necessary here in town. This can be anything from road improvement, this might be anything for public works and other things. And I think that is really the key component, and that is that we have a very specific area that appears to be growing much faster than the revenue source that the town has. Last but not least, as we explored revenue options, and I'm gonna put the hat on that I've had since the very beginning, we do know that the state contribution, when it comes to reimbursement for public education, is just not there. It's not there at the rate and at the level that it needs to be. In addition to this here, I will also say that the larger single tranche taxpayer, or payer I'm sorry, not taxpayer, payer in lieu of taxes to this town, be it for state-owned land or for watershed, their contribution has been steady, but it has not increased in a commensurate manner. So even though we, as residents of our town, through our tax bills, typically, I'm not saying everybody, but typically we'll see increases, the two largest contributors towards our revenue, which again is state-owned land, single contributors I should say, which is state-owned land and the watershed, have not increased. And I am bringing this up because in all three cases, again, state contribution towards our school, state-owned land, reimbursements, and watershed need to be addressed. They cannot be addressed only by us because there's other communities that are at the same boat as we are. I think this is really something that we need to work with our state rep. We need to work with other towns and other municipalities that are hopefully thinking the same way that we are, and make this a concerted effort in working with the legislators and really indicate how we as a town are impacted. The numbers are there, they're very clear, they're very explicit. And if this continues as it appears to be continuing over the next several years, we're definitely going to be on a financial cliff. The financial cliff has implications, which I will not talk to myself, but I think that the town administrator can probably provide some better color in terms of what the alternatives are. And Tim, I don't want to hog this here. You have some additional comments you want to make?
Sure. The first comment I'd like to make is that the employees of the town and the town officials, the volunteers and the people who work on all the boards and committees, should be commended for years of frugality. I mean, looking at our budgets compared to other towns our size and with the number of miles of roads that we have, we've been doing really well. And that's, in a way, that's part of the problem. We've been making it work. You've been making it work. And what's not on the surface is that every year that we have to cut back on things like preventive maintenance, the risk goes up a little bit more. And you know, it's kind of like the frog in the bathwater. The bathwater is getting hotter, and when does the frog jump out? Because that risk is getting a little bit higher every year, it's getting near the time when we need to take steps to lower that risk. And, you know, the risks I'm talking about are of something catastrophic, like a dead tree that we don't have any money in the budget to remove, falling down across the road right in front of or right on top of a car. I know of 2 cases in Connecticut where people were killed, both parents in the front seat, children survived in one fatality, and another 2 people out for a Sunday drive. Tree, sunny day like today, it wasn't windy, tree had been dead for years, fell down across State Highway and killed them both. I don't think any of our roads have ever gotten this bad, but, you know, if at some point Public Works isn't able to maintain the drainage structures, have the equipment maintained to manage snowstorms, and a fire truck or an ambulance gets stuck responding to a call, that could have very serious consequences for the town. So, though, if we're not keeping up with the preventive maintenance on things like removing the hazardous trees, keeping the roads and the drainage systems maintained, and the equipment Public Works all maintain, we're putting ourselves at a little bit more risk every year.
To your point on that one, it's pretty much the number one job of the select board, for example, to be the safety of and the well-being of the town
Yeah.
is has to be one of our major concerns throughout that, and you're making the argument right there.
Yeah,
Yep.
our aging fleets, whether it be the fire department or the DPW.
Ambulances, fire,
Or
police.
dead
Yeah,
trees, as
everything.
you're putting it, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and a more subtle risk is sort of an administrative risk. If we're having trouble providing a work environment and a level of compensation and professional development that's motivating people to come and stay working for Hubbardston, and we have constant turnover of personnel, things get lost or lost track of. And over time, that can lead to problems like some of the assessments aren't right and they don't get fixed, or the opportunity for a grant gets lost because nobody had their eye on that ball because they were too busy trying to learn the job from the person who left 3 months ago. So part of the preventive maintenance is actually investing in the compensation and professional development for all of the staff people. I don't mean just the administrative people here and over there, but also the people in Public Works. They should also have professional development, and I think we had a vacancy in Public Works for a year.
Years,
Yeah, we've had
couple years now.
couple years, we've
That's
had-
not a good sign.
Down 2 cops, over 2 years now at this point.
Wow.
We're
We've
getting
had
one
another turnover
back.
when it comes to the town clerk.
Yeah,
Those are
yep, yep.
typical examples.
Yeah, let's see, and like Francois, I'm a big supporter of public education. You know, Massachusetts what is now Massachusetts had the first public school in what is now the United States in 1635, and I'll bet you we didn't have any budget for police or fire or ambulance in 1635. I'll bet you education was about 95% of the budget. So I'm not concerned if it's 58 or 55 or 65% of the budget, if that's what it takes to invest in the development and education of our young people, because we need more plumbers and truck drivers and electricians and doctors and nurses and other people who have a basic education so that they can operate in society. And we need people that are more technologically advanced than I am, for sure. So anyway, that's the pitch for making the investment in the town to maintain the quality of life that we're enjoying. One fine point, I think the watershed pilot is based in part on our tax rate. I think the state determines what the value of the land is, and then I believe our current tax rate is applied, except there is a fallback provision.
hold harmless.
A hold harmless clause that means they won't lower the payment in lieu of taxes from what it was the previous year. But, I think you all understand the math. As real estate values increase, we are forced to lower our tax rate, to comply with Prop 2.5. And that means we're doing it to ourselves.
They're
We
going
are-
the wrong direction.
We're lowering
Right.
what the state has to pay us for pilot, just because of the interplay of pilot and Prop 2.5. If it wasn't under pilot and it was all part of the tax base, probably the assessments on the state-owned land would rise faster than it does. But that interplay is one of the reasons why I think ultimately we're gonna be forced to do some kind of an override.
Are all 5 of our towns have land in Ware River watershed?
Rutland, Oakham,
No,
New
not
Braintree, I'm not sure.
Harry does.
Berry,
Yeah.
Hardwick,
Barrington.
right, Berry, Hardwick,
does,
us,
yep,
and then there's, New
Temple,
Braintree and
Braintree.
Oakham.
Yeah, I don't know about New Braintree, but Oakham
Oakham does?
I'm pretty sure they,
Okay,
So, most towns around this area do,
Yeah.
have some more acreage, some less acreage. I think what is very important to note, and I appreciate the fact that you talked about this here, from an assessment perspective, it's the state who assesses the value of this land. So it's not like we have an independent assessor who
Yeah.
says, the value is this here. Which, in my opinion, this is something that needs to be checked. Again, we cannot do it by ourselves. The second thing is that, yes, we have it tied, and you said it very correctly, is whatever the valuation is, you divide it by 1,000, then you multiply it by the commercial rate. And it's maybe not a problem, but it is a problem, and that is our commercial rate is tied with the residential rate. And yes, we don't want to harm our commercial entities that are here in town. So potentially, and this is something that Nate and I have discussed in the past, there are potential ways in which you can modify this here so that everybody in a commercial, or that is a commercial entity actually is not affected, but non-producing entities can potentially be forced to pay more. And that's one way to maybe work this out. And we'd have to obviously work with the legal department about this here. But what is very important here to note is that by us being forced to reduce our tax rate, yes, we have the hold harmless clause, but what we're doing is we're digging ourselves a hole. And that hole is basically one that it's gonna take us several years to extract ourselves from, because the valuation is definitely not going to increase enough for us to be able to eventually get an increase in what we are paid for pilot. So those are things that really need to be thought of, and I think the Board of Assessors has to take the ball when it comes to this here and start thinking about what needs to be done here. And I'm not saying it's one person or not. This is just something that really needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
And how can we do this here more creatively? Again, I think the message I would like to leave you guys with is that we've looked under every potential rock. We looked at fees, we looked at state-owned land, we looked at fines, God knows whatever else. And I said every single place we look where we could potentially increase a fee or this and the other, it's a drop in the bucket. The 3 biggest contributors towards our tax base are just not paying what really needs to be paid. And we need to join hands with other cities and towns. We need to meet the press and let them know that this is a big problem that rural communities such as ours have. And does this require us to eventually come up to a 2.5 override proposal? I'd hate to see it, because personally I am affected, I think everybody potentially would be affected by this here, but as a town, in order to be able to be a functional town, we're really left with nowhere else to go. Because we have an obligation, which is the school, which, by the way, interestingly enough, I don't know who oversees their budget, but from a budget perspective, their budget has increased at a percentage rate that is beyond what we are seeing. Interestingly enough, in the last couple of years, including, I think I heard article in the news yesterday that Boston is actually reducing their overall budget for the schools. So there are other school systems that are actually starting to look at, decreasing their overall expenditures. So there is a notion out there, and there's a precedent for other systems to do this here. We may have to start thinking about how do we make sure that our educational entities start looking at this here. And more importantly, I think it's also understanding why is it increasing by this amount. Is the per pupil cost due to infrastructure? Is it due to administration? Is it due to contractual obligation that they have with teachers? That really needs to be understood, and see whether or not there is a capability to reduce the overall budget in a manner that hopefully does not impact the educational quality that our children receive.
Do you have any recommendations as to, because as you said, we're the choir. How are we gonna, for lack of a better word, sell this to the town? Do you have, as far as getting the word out that we are approaching a cliff, this is nothing.
I think this last page says it all. And if you look at these last two numbers here, the numbers which say non-educational expenditure, you see that for last year, 2023, what we had left over after paying for everything that has to do with education. As a matter of fact, you go back to 2022, which was, we had the highest revenue that we had available for our expenditures was $4.6 million. In 2023, it reduced to $4.33 million. So there's a net decrease of roughly about $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2024, it's gone down by another $150,000 roughly, give and take. And this is in high inflationary times, right? So you have costs that are actually going up, and you have no way in which you're making it up by revenue.
And less money every year to run the town.
And people have less money to give to the town. Can't forget
And
that part.
that's the problem here. We are stuck, we're the ham of the sandwich, we're getting squeezed
We're
on
in
both
trouble.
sides.
Listen, between taxes going up just recently, real estate, I took a big one. Car insurance, need not say anymore. If you have two vehicles, your car insurance is going up another $400 or $500. Homeowners insurance just went up $300 more.
Utilities,
Utilities
Fuel.
just went up 60% or whatever it is. Fuel oil is basically the same.
oh, it's gonna go up.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking for me,
Okay,
oil,
yeah.
I'm under contract, so, and it stayed the same for next year also.
Beautiful.
So, that's a bright spot.
Nate-
But,
Oh, sorry, Dr. Dent.
I mean, my biggest issue is the state evaluating their own property. You know they're undervaluating it. Okay, they came in, whenever it was in the 40s, for this watershed and swooped in and stole all this land. And you got the Boston people that are reaping the benefits of our water, and it starts out at Wachusett, right?
Quabbin, yeah.
Quabbin, that's what I meant, Quabbin. And I know they're starting to fight the water issue out there and trying to get a kickback for every gallon that Boston's using.
Correct.
Which they should, and it should be, get grandfathered back to the 1940s as far as I'm concerned. And, open space is nice, and they took all this land, and then, the city is saturated with buildings and people, and they don't really have open space, so they don't really know what it's like to have open space. I'm just a little perplexed by the state not paying their fair share, so.
So I think part of you're bringing up some very good issues. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't take anything away from the Boston, the Cambridges of the world,
Yeah.
because they are economic engines that basically also fund a lot of things that we have in our state. The reality, however, is water is a precious resource,
Precious.
and we are the lungs of the state, this area here. And with individuals who are looking at how do we keep our environment clean, this is certainly a model example. The true problem is that you and I, and the people here in this room, will never be able to change it by ourselves. The only way we can do this here is truly by ourselves rising up, working with other towns and communities, making sure that our newspapers are thinking about this here and putting the articles and getting the voices. This is not gonna be something that's gonna happen. This is the lamentable part. This is not gonna happen overnight. This is probably a 3, 4, 5 year process at best before we can maybe get something moving. I have a good friend of mine, or somebody I know, I should say, that is a reporter with the Boston Globe. I explained to them the situation, says, you know, lamentably, this is not news for the Boston Globe. I'm not saying that she's right or wrong, I'm just simply saying, but that's the reality, right? We need to start networking ourselves, working with our individuals. When we had our state rep here and our state senator here, we brought this up. I mean, I know I brought it up and other people brought it up too. We need to keep harping on this here. We need to work with those communities who are west of us, who are trying to get the 5 cents per 1,000-gallon tagged on the MWRA bill.
Which is nothing.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 35 cents for a typical household in the metropolitan area, but represents for those 6 towns represents $3.5 million, which I wish we had $500,000 that we could, you know, divide it among 6 people or 6 towns, be able to have those extra $500,000 for our town. We don't have that. And so we need to think as a concerted effort. This is not gonna change because one group is shouting. It's because you have larger communities that are shouting. You need to get many a state rep, you need to have many a state senator, you need to have the press behind this here, and you have to say, this is a problem. And Gobi knows this here. Our reps know it because we've told them, but it needs to be a concerted effort.
And then another issue is, oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I wanna try to
Yes,
bring it to a close, but,
I'm sorry, can I just
yeah.
bring in a little bit of information?
You have
What-
anything? Okay.
I'll close it out after.
All right. Go ahead.
The assessed value for the state-owned land is over $4,000 an acre. And as of, this is FY '23 data, the value of privately owned parcels in Hubbardston of more than 50 acres is $2,100 per acre. So the state is assessing their land at about twice what we are assessing our own land. So I don't think we can cry too hard to the state that they're undervaluing their land. They're valuing it twice as high as we're valuing it, the privately owned land in our town. And don't forget, the state doesn't ask us to pay for sending any kids to school or maintaining any of the roads or having a police department or a fire department. They got their own police, they've got their own fire department. If the town helps with a fire, I believe the town gets reimbursed for that. And the state-owned land between '23 and FY '24, their pilot contribution increased by 14%, which is a bigger increase than inflation.
Okay,
Who is the state fire department?
It's part of
That's
PCRU.
But we pay for them anyways, through our taxes.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so you
Absolutely.
gotta throw that out the window a little bit, don't you?
So what?
Well, you said the state has their own fire department for the land over there, or whatever you're talking about, right? But we're supporting that. We pay for that.
Absolutely.
We, the taxpayers, pay for that.
Everybody with
Correct.
income helps pay for that, but it doesn't come out of the town budget. When we're talking about the town budget.
Understood,
Yeah.
yes, sir. So, the only thing I was gonna say is, one of our problems is, west of 495, especially in Worcester County, the legislatures are controlled, controlled by the cities, right?
Mhm.
So everything goes their way on what they wanna do. So, that's why we have to band together a whole bunch of people out here, all the different towns, and try and, that's the only way you're gonna get change, is when you have a big group, right? And, we're gonna harp on it. I mean, I'm sure our rep and senator are sick of hearing it, but we gotta keep hitting them with it.
Well, the
So-
squeaky wheel gets
and
the oil.
so they can hit up their buddies west of us, maybe get on the bandwagon.
I absolutely agree, and,
Yeah.
and as a matter of fact, joining with them, even, if they have different political
Yeah, who cares?
perspective, that's not the problem. The
Right.
problem is that they're suffering the same way that we're suffering.
Just as bad.
And back to the point I made in the sense of getting the word out there, I
Yeah.
mean, we need the town to be these voices too, as the squeaky wheel, but,
If
excuse me, Chris, do you have anything to offer, or any comments you wanna make before we close this out?
No, I don't have any comments to make, but great work. Thank you for putting that together. That's a great presentation. I hope it hits home with some of the people here in town and some of our neighboring communities. I think, groupthink and banding together and beating the drum is right on target, and that's the way we're gonna get anything done if we can.
I just wanted to comment something. I know that we have an opportunity to reach a larger portion of our town. Obviously, not everybody's here today, as they say. I don't know how to potentially convey this message, or how maybe you as a town administrator or you as a select board may want to bring this up. There's a perfect opportunity in the town meeting to
I
start
was
thinking
thinking the
about this
same
here.
thing.
Okay?
Can you do something like that at town meeting? Have a presentation such as this? Granted, you're not gonna reach 4,900 people, but you're
No.
certainly gonna reach more than 7 or 8 of us who already know.
And it's not to
Yeah.
say that we are saying you have to have a 2.5 override, but you're simply saying, folks, you need to be alert to this here. And these are the problems that we as a town are confronting. And you as an individual who lives on this town have the opportunity to raise your concern, either with your school because you want to understand better how the budget is calculated, or when you have a chance to talk about this here with your neighbors and maybe with a state rep, come to these meetings. This is important. We cannot just ignore it.
I think we should, I would like to have us explore the possibility of at town meeting, someone like yourselves or whatever, be willing to make this kind of a presentation to the body there, just, as you say, this is a 3 to 5 year type thing, at best, to use your words.
Yeah.
So that we gotta begin by at least getting the word out, and if we can legally do this at a town meeting, even though it's not a warrant, as it is basically to give information to the community and ask them to spread it, it's a start, But thank you, doubling up on what Chris said, you put a ton of work in this, the three of you, Francois, Tim, and Brett's not here, but thank you. And, it's not over yet, but.
No, it's not. It's
but
just
I
the
do-
beginning.
But we appreciate that, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Somebody?
Nope.
Oh.
So, once again, thank you to the 3 individuals, and thank
Good
you
job,
to
guys.
our staff members for working with the group. One of the main goals when I brought this here was to have someone that wasn't so very buried in the town day-to-day operations and could take a fresh perspective out on the topic. From what was presented here this evening, it was very, very similar to the presentation I made 6 to 8 months ago. And that points to a clear problem. And it's not something that I, as a town administrator, as a professional, as a member of the greater community, take lightly, because even having to propose raising taxes stinks. Like, I don't want it to happen in Gardner where I live, I don't want it to happen to the people here. However, there's going to unfortunately come a day where we have to either do something or give up a lot more than we have been. We can 100% circumnavigate it this year, maybe even next year, but I've said this to almost every one of you. Hubbardston could conceivably hobble along forever, but is that what this community wants to do? Is the community interested in the growth, interested in the proper service levels? So that's something, this is by no means the end of this conversation, but again, I thank the Structural Deficit Working Group for working together so diligently over the last 6 to 8 months and coming here this evening for what I think was a very worthwhile conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, we have a consent agenda. I'll go through it with you folks, in case anyone has any holds. First of all, there's an appointment for Justin Holbrook, laborer, DPW, expires 6/30/2024. And all of these authorizations, et cetera, everybody's met everything that they needed to meet. Wage authorization for Benjamin Seitz, laborer, DPW, 2351. Status 6 months. Justin Holbrook, the laborer we just mentioned, DPW, his wage 2236 as a new hire. If there are no holds on any of this, could we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion is made, can we have a second?
Second.
And second, any discussion?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
The only thing I wanna discuss is those wages definitely look a lot better than they did a couple of years ago.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
We're trying.
That's all.
I meet with them tomorrow as well to start
Yeah.
union negotiations.
Is there still an open spot after this?
No, they're full.
No,
This will actually make it
we
full.
actually have to deal with a personnel issue.
Yeah, but this will-
Yeah,
okay.
We're over full at this point if this all works out.
Any other comments? Chris, anything?
No?
Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, Chris?
Yes.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving to new business. We need, basically, it's just, there's no discussion, I don't believe, it's just a motion that we need, right, to close the warrant?
I can let you know one or two things.
Okay, so-
After I sent out this on Thursday, there were 3 additional proposals or prospects that came in. One being a capital purchase for the Cable Advisory Committee, which would not come from taxpayer dollars, and the other from Mr. Hawley, who noted that the open space may be interested in considering the reimbursement for Mark Kresge and the open space, that grant, at town meeting. I have to work with him, but I do want to maintain the ability to put those on if needed by mentioning them right now. And
That
so,
would be like, what, 26, 5,
yeah.
25 more articles?
Yeah, and then I will, the articles as proposed are by no means final, so we will have discussions about them over the next few months and go from there. I'd like to thank the individuals that sent things in and the CPA for working so hard to get me theirs on time. It's going good so far.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, could we have a motion to close the annual town meeting warrant?
So moved.
Motion made, can we have a second?
Second.
And second? Any comments, any questions from anybody? Chris, you have anything?
No?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, opposed, abstained, motion carried. Okay. The annual town meeting / budget schedule, turn that over to Nate.
Yep, so I just wanted to bring forward the proposed schedule to you guys so you knew what I was looking into doing. There's no vote or anything like that, but I wanted to bring it forward here this evening to ensure that we were doing all of the things we need to do, and ensuring that the community had the opportunity to speak to the budget, speak to the town meeting warrant, and just felt involved in the process, as that was one of my goals at the beginning of the year. So I think that this is a bit of an increased schedule. I don't want to overwhelm people by ramping too much up, but if there's anything you would like to see added, please let me know.
Okay, no motion needed here. Anyone have any comments or questions for Nate?
And we're going to be meeting with the finance committee, obviously, but with there being only 3 of them, we run into quorum issues whenever someone can't make it.
They're still
So-
shy too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just gets tough, cause people go on vacations and people have things to do, like,
Yeah.
people work.
Okay, then I'm moving to item C, MBI Digital Equity Planning Program Grant. Turn that over to you, Nate, to explain. if you
So,
would.
one of the main problems I hear from the residents of Hubbardston is that their internet is not the best and is expensive, and that their cell phone service is garbage. So we are working on, we are obviously, by the construction of several towers, working on the cell phone service, but I also wanted to get the ball rolling on working on the home internet and potential fiber opportunities down the road. So when the MBI Massachusetts Broadband Institute grant opportunity was brought to my attention, I applied. It would be working with a consultant to put together a plan for what needs to be increased to bring internet and reliable internet to all of the portions of town, make sure everybody has reliable internet and reliable access to said internet, and then once complete, you, by having this plan done, are eligible for federal grants to implement it. I think I'm usually not the biggest proponent of a feasibility study or plan of these natures, because a lot of times they fizzle out and then you end up with just another file in your computer or just another book on the shelf. But I am very interested in working on this because I know it's such a large scale problem. So that'll be interesting to do, and I ask that you approve working on that this evening.
I just have
Alright.
a question. I have a question.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Mr. Chair?
yep.
So, when I read equity, that
I
word,
knew it was gonna be
that word
Yes.
scares me,
Yeah.
okay? First of all, is that an income-based type of thing, or are you saying equity to the people that don't have it versus the people that already have it?
So I knew that word was gonna bring red flags, so I did my research. One of the things, again, one of the items that make you a part of the equitable proponent of this is being rural. And we are rural.
We
So
are.
as much as this would be very different in the Fitchburgs and the Worcesters of the world, and yes, at that point, it is looking at equity in the classic fashion that you're thinking of.
Because they have fiber optic, we don't.
Yeah, because they have racial inequity issues.
Well, they do, yeah.
And like, there are a number of issues that Hubbardston, hopefully, I can't say it doesn't have, but I hope that those issues are not out there, but equity is just meaning something different out here due to the rural nature, at least within the confines of this program.
Small town problems.
Right, because, you know, I have cable or internet that I pay for, and it's really no better than anybody else's in the other part of the town, because it's lousy all over
Yeah.
town, right? So that's what when I see that word,
Because the equity, I wouldn't go as far as saying is in how much you pay, but it is in your ability to pay and get it. It isn't equitable if you can pay for better internet
Right.
and then someone else down the
Can't.
road can't.
Right.
Like that.
It should be the same across the board for the whole town.
And you
Same
pay,
rate.
and you pay your level, or you
Right,
pay-
whatever whatever your megabytes is or whatever else.
And I cannot speak to being, I hope I learn a lot and I get the opportunity to work with these people, but I right now cannot speak to even really what the final product's gonna
Okay.
look like.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Francois?
Francois Schneider, 65 Yeldon Road. One thing to consider here is that, and I do know of numerous individuals whose main telephone system, not just cable, but main telephone cable comes through the internet lines. And so, let's not forget that. And I would say that the senior population here in town is probably most impacted and affected by this here, because they are not necessarily always cell users. And in the event of a storm, in the event of a problem that can be weather related, but also even emergencies at home, not having the ability, we have power outages, this is a very good example here, where they cannot access the emergency numbers, factor that in.
Yeah.
And the way I'm looking at that, that's an equity issue for our elderly individuals who potentially do not have proper communication aspect of this here, access.
And may I
Yep.
help him out, not help him out, but add to that is, one of the problems is, all your phone lines are through the cable lines now, right? So, your phone lines, I don't even know if they work anymore.
Oh, there's
Verizon,
still two wire systems out there.
There is? Yeah, there's one hanging on my street, by the way, it's been
Why-
hanging for 2 years.
Yeah, Verizon.
But nobody maintains them anymore, right? So.
No, they're still out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that a lot of people have them,
Yeah,
but the biggest consumer
Yeah.
of what we call landlines nowadays
Yeah.
use the internet as a means by which to do it, and primarily this happened as a result of the bundling opportunities that they received. They were
Exactly.
sold something which oftentimes does not necessarily work in the cases of power outages, and definitely does not work when you have
Yeah.
a storm or a tree that came down.
roger that.
Anything else?
Also, a portion of this which I was able to already sign Hubbardston up for, there is $70,000 to $100,000 in implementation costs associated with this grant that you had to sign up for already. So I've already expressed interest. That is a drop in the bucket in compared to what is likely to come to run a good system in a town like Hubbardston, but that is even a start. So, and I would hate to see a town sit back and, because they didn't take advantage of a free opportunity, get left behind while everyone else is getting all of this money from the federal government to implement increased internet infrastructure.
Okay.
Agreed.
Anything else? Could we have a motion?
Alright, I'd like to make a motion to accept the partnership with MBI and authorize the town administrator to work with MBI and their consultant, Kimley Horn?
Yep.
Okay, to develop a digital equity plan for Hubbardston.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second. Any questions, any discussion? Chris, you all set?
All set.
Okay, seeing none then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, Chris?
Aye.
Motion carried. Excuse me. Opposed, abstained? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Under old business. I'm just gonna put this out for the board, and we all, Nate sent us a letter that he had got from Ed Blanchard regarding to the Comet Pond issue of long-distance swimming, and asking us to bring it up one more time, et cetera, with all the recommendations that were presented, so, we were kind of expecting that Ed might be here either on Zoom or in person, but since he isn't, I'm putting it out there to the board Is the feeling of anyone on the board at this particular point in time wanting to do anything at all about this particular item? Because it's been before us now 3 different times. Go ahead.
The only thing I see, I would have to dig into it a little deeper, because I never went to any of the meetings between, who's running the water there,
Ware River Watershed.
Ware River Watershed. I never went to any of the meetings, so I didn't really keep up with that, so I don't know where they're at, you know, and them allowing the, now, swimming is moving from one pond to the other? Is that what's going on?
No, it's to allow long distance, the
So-
state has already said yes.
But it
to
was never
long
there
distance
before,
swimming on Comet Pond.
and it was not there before.
Well, I'm sure people were doing
It was
it.
there.
But it wasn't authorized by
But
the
the state has,
Right.
and
So now they're making it official.
there's a group led by Ed, et cetera, at Comet Pond who are
Okay.
And it is past the time period to put in
Yeah.
public hearing. We could still,
Yeah.
you as the select board can write to DCR at any time and talk to them about anything that you feel like talking to them about. But also please note that Chief Kuchar did write a letter outlining the safety concerns with the proposal. So,
And we've already sent stuff in
Mhm.
as well, so this isn't like we haven't done anything, we have.
Right.
So I don't like, again, it's,
I mean, they have the final word anyways, right, to deal with
yeah, well,
Watershed.
regardless, people are gonna do what they're gonna do anyway, they're
Right.
gonna swim regardless. But I feel like they're trying to come up with the best case scenario to allow it. Some of the residents aren't happy on Comet Pond with the proposal due to different issues and scenarios, but I mean, we have sent information and letters stating what our problems were, the chief has as well. So I think we've done our due diligence, but I don't know how you all feel.
Well, I've been, all along, one of the things that I've been most concerned about, and I still am, there are too many questions, because it's a state and a town
Yeah, I know.
issue.
It's a hot mess.
Okay, the state supposedly is supposed to be providing, let's say, the lifeguards, et cetera. At what point is it falling on us? What responsibility are we gonna have, in terms of the town, what's it gonna cost? Because, on that list that Ed provided, one of the things that was on there to have an emergency boat handy there, just in case. So, what are you're gonna have to pay someone who, just
Yes.
sitting there twiddling their thumbs in case it's an emergency, who pays that? And, so, from my point of view, it's difficult to go one way or the other on this, because I just have all these other questions that haven't been unanswerable to me.
I gotta get some down.
Hmm?
That's just background noise, they're not muted.
Okay, so that's where I stand, so,
Yeah.
is it the feeling of the board? Chris, do you have anything on this?
Well, I mean, I saw Ed's questions, but I still don't know the answers to those questions.
I'm
I
with
mean,
you.
Are we doing a deep dive into that? Is somebody researching the answers to those questions, or do we know them and someone can explain them to me? Because last time Ed was on this call, you know, I think I said the same thing, that they're legitimate questions, and we can't really opine on the topic until we know the answers to those questions. And, you know, there's parking safety concerns, and there's, the concern you just mentioned.
liability.
I mean, I think we need to be clarity on Ed's questions before we can opine on, you know, what, at least personally, that's how I feel.
No, I agree. So is it,
So who's gonna research the answers to those questions and bring them forward for a discussion at a future meeting?
well, actually, we've already passed the deadline for anything.
yeah, we've passed the deadline
Yeah.
to make comment as the comment period proper.
Right.
As I just stated, you as the executive entity in the community can write a letter to anyone you want, just as others can as well. But,
Well, then we need to sit down and write a letter then, 'cause-
Well,
We
that's
have
up, that's if the board wishes to do this.
Oh, okay.
I'll
We
write you
don't
a
need to
letter.
do
I think
anything
that's
either,
the-
you know.
Oh, right.
at this particular point in time, it's a question of what is the consensus?
I'll also go dig into Ed's questions, but we know a lot of those answers, because unfortunately, it's still a plan. So the answers are going to be, oh, we don't know that quite yet. It's the state, like, oh, we'll figure it out, we'll put it in. So a lot of it's gonna be, we don't know quite yet.
Yeah, and they'll just fluff us off and just do it anyways.
There's a meeting, I believe, I'd have to go look back in Ed's emails, on the 11th
Of
April.
April?
I can, as long as there's not, I don't have my calendar in front of me, as long as there's not a meeting that I have to attend, I can attend the Ware River Watershed meeting in an attempt to gather more information.
I'd go to that.
Yeah. But I don't see a great chance that the state's just going to have these answers
readily.
locked and loaded, ready to come out quite yet. When I'm sure there are higher priorities both within and outside the parameters of the plan than getting down to Comet Pond, building that parking and getting that free swimming going.
I mean, there is a good amount of parking there, and every time I have been there, when I have gone, I just wanna say, when I have gone, I've never been there with the parking lot full, and I go kayaking there.
I mean,
Well,
you
again,
drive
it's-
by there in the summer, are they parked in the street because the gate's closed?
Well,
'Cause
that's at
nobody's up
I
there,
think
or-
that they're adding the parking over on the where you go kayaking, not where you go swimming.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong on that, but
Yeah.
that's what I
That was one
thought.
of the suggestions.
Yeah, that the parking was gonna be over by the boat ramp, which is off,
Oh, for the swimmers, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, because but over by the swimming area, there's always a line on the,
Yes,
on
because they-
68,
Yeah, they either
which
close.
is a huge liability.
That's, yep. At a certain point, they closed the gates or they didn't open them.
Well, they didn't have the help.
Yep.
But it's a liability for who?
The town,
No, I
I
don't-
would think.
Well, that's the,
We
that's
can't
my
get
point.
we're looking for an answer to
Right.
who handles that issue if it does arise, Chris. That's
Well, that's what I think we've gotta nail down.
Right.
correct.
Is it ideal that people park on that road? No, but if something, God forbid, happens, who's liable for that?
Right,
You know, if a long-distance swimmer has a problem in the middle of the lake, who's liable for that?
right.
If the burden of that responsibility is gonna fall on the town, then we certainly have to raise that concern.
Right,
But if it's a use at your own risk and a park at your own risk and that's posted, you know, maybe we don't have to be so concerned about it. That's why I think we need answers to these questions, you know, that Ed raises.
Either that or make sure that they do, Chris, like you said, park at your own risk and swim at your own risk signs are put up, not that I wanna see more
There's no
signs
parking
anywhere,
signs
but-
now, but nobody
Yeah.
enforces it.
So I'll do my best to go to that meeting and make some calls on what this would be. I still believe that they're gonna tell me half whatever I want to hear, half they don't know. But I will 100% look into that for you.
Let me, send me a reminder, cause I'll
Yeah.
join you.
I'll
Sorry.
get the date down
No.
packed too. It could not be on the 11th, but that date sticks out in my head without looking at anything.
I hate that.
that would
That's all I've been hearing all
be, that would be
day.
fine, cause I think the consensus I'm getting from this, and I'm also part of it, is I don't see that we as a board are in a position to do anything active in terms of writing a letter agreeing or not agreeing, because we have all these questions that are not answered. So that we can't really put it in the form of a letter and send it to the state saying this is how we feel. We don't know how we feel because we don't know what we're dealing with. That would be my recommendation, that we don't do anything specific at this point in time. So unless anyone has a different feeling, can we move on from here? Any last minute thoughts for this, Chris?
No, we can move on. I think Nate summed it up well. He's gonna try to get to that meeting and answer the questions that Ed sent in the note and that we reverberated here tonight.
Okay. Any,
Nope.
Peter,
I'm good.
Katie, all right. Let's move then, and thanks, Nate, move to the town administration report.
That'd be you.
No, I know that. I'm
Okay.
trying to
That's a brief one, thank you.
No,
Okay.
And
All right,
moving on.
next.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was thinking about how I told my wife I'd be home for dinner by
I
7:45.
kept looking at, you told me, I kept looking at
Yeah, I
the,
told,
too.
I told Jeff,
You're a
tonight's
big
the,
liar.
tonight's the short
Blame it
one.
on
You're a big
Francois.
liar.
Things have been going all right. The interim town clerk has been open 10 to 2 on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. She will continue with that until such time as the new town clerk, who has been hired and accepted the position, starts. To get out of her obligations to her current employment, she cannot start until April 22nd, but there are going to be a couple of days where she comes in and works with Denise on looking over some things and meeting with us and beginning her paperwork. I do understand that it's April vacation at one point for one of those weeks, and the soon-to-be town clerk works at a business that involves children. So,
There you go, yeah.
so there's that. We've finally gotten all of the information to FEMA. I don't think I've publicly spoken about this, but I've told the select board in their email, FEMA Public Assistance, or FEMA PA as it has been called, turned down the reimbursement of approximately $140,000 from COVID-related purchases during the COVID pandemic. We've been working with FEMA Public Assistance back and forth for about 6 months now, sending them the information that they are looking for. We have finally got a lot of the information that they needed out to them. As I don't know if it was Francois or Tim alluded to, after turnover, it gets incredibly difficult to pinpoint what your predecessor had done. So we spent a lot of time looking into that. I'm hoping that we can get that number a lot lower. I know for a fact we're not going to be able to get it down to 0, but the things that were denied were the overnight ambulance work, some of the police work that was not directly COVID related, the AED machine, and the stretcher from Stryker, the automatic stretcher. So we're working with FEMA. We have not to appeal the denial. We are not alone, but I don't like being in this situation, so I will keep you updated on that. Dog licenses were due today. Yeah. Other than that, things are going pretty good. I will keep you guys in the know.
Okay. Any comments, questions? All right, thank you. Policies to review, I don't believe we have any, correct? Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, are there any? Okay, move right along.
There's one right over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Francois.
Francis Steiger, 65 Hillville Road. I wanted to respectfully ask Nathan if you thought that a year ago, when we did the municipal aggregation, presented that to the town meeting, would it make sense for us to provide an update maybe this time around at the town meeting, or do you think this might be premature?
It may be premature.
Okay.
It also may be more relevant at the special town meeting in the fall, because I think we will have more real info.
me. Yeah.
Like, as you know more than anybody, we don't necessarily have info to move forward and hang our hats on.
We definitely don't have a contract at this point in time, and I think this is still pending with the legislature. So I do agree with you. I think it is something that nonetheless, it is kind of an anniversary date,
Yeah.
and just, that's why I was thinking of that. And the next item I wanted to present at
I've been trying to reach my son all
Okay.
day, it's his birthday, my
Oh.
oldest son, he's in
Okay.
Arizona.
And now he calls you.
I cannot get a
Well,
signal.
it's only 5:00 out
Don't
there.
worry,
He's
we're
just
about to
sitting
be
down for
done.
supper.
Don't
Okay,
worry.
well, so public,
I just let it.
press?
Okay, are you all set,
I'm all
Francois?
set.
Okay.
That was
Yeah,
it.
Public
let's,
and press?
let's let that cook a little bit and we'll, cause you're on the email, when we hear back from him and
Yeah,
after we
that's fine.
meet, we'll discuss if that's appropriate or not.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting
Aye.
adjourned. Next